Hello, and thanks for joining us on this edition of Green and Gold Gridiron. I am your host, Brian Groff, as always, alongside Keith Roding from PackerReport.com. And Keith, it's been 2 straight weeks of Packers losses, so please tell us that things will get better.
We're still 6-2. I don't think we need to go out on the ledge just yet, but these are problems that have been manifesting themselves even through some of those wins. I mean, defense was a problem against San Diego. It was a problem against Denver. It was a problem against Carolina. So there's things we're doing well. There's things we improved on, but, man, they've got their work cut out for them.
It gives us a lot to talk about throughout this half hour. Coming up in just a bit, we will bring in Jenny Ritchie. She'll give us the tease of what we'll talk about in our Titletown Topics with this week's guest, someone who is joining us in the studio. It's Royce Boyles, one of the most knowledgeable men you'll come across when it comes to the Vince Lombardi Packers. So, Keith, the Packers lose back-to-back games, this time 37-29 to Carolina. They are now 6-2. In the big picture of the NFC, the Packers are 2 games behind in the race for the #1 seed.
The loss to Carolina hurts because you fall 2 games behind an undefeated team in the NFC. You also, you're down that tiebreaker. That head-to-head is such an important tiebreaker. They don't have that. You know, it was great to see him come back. I think we all feel a little bit better. They showed a pulse. They showed a passion. I didn't mind the little dust up on the sideline. But this team was down 30-14 going into the 4th. Aaron Rodgers had 117 yards through the half. 40 of those yards came on that heave to James Jones at the end of the first half, which didn't even lead to a score. So you really have to look at it and say, you can look at the 369 yards and the 4 touchdowns at the end, or you can say too little too late, and maybe Carolina took their foot off the gas at the end.
Looking right at the NFC North Division, the Packers win the first 6 and then lose 2. Meanwhile, the Vikings lose 2 of 4, and then they start putting some wins together. So they moved into a tie now for first place.
That Vikings team is pretty dangerous. You know, Teddy Bridgewater is playing better. Of course, you have Adrian Peterson, and the defense is tough. So suddenly you have to take them seriously, and, you know, even the Bears are winning. You know, now we've got the Bears knocking off San Diego, and you've got Indianapolis, who is up 17 points to Carolina 2 weeks ago in the 4th quarter. They lose, but then they come back and beat Denver. So I don't know what to think of the NFC. I don't know what to think of the AFC. A game at a time, right?
You know, we look at your Keith's keys, and if the team would just
look
at it and listen,
why don't they?
Then, but they're not listening to you. But your keys last week,
exactly what they need to do to win.
You do give them a blueprint, and one of the parts last week was stopping the run. Jonathan Stewart and Cam Newton. The other part was Aaron Rodgers needs to play like an MVP, like you just touched on. We saw that in the second half.
We did, and with the run game, so Stewart 20 carries, 66 yards. So you could argue they held him in check. Cam Newton, 9 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown, but it's when he gets those. But what we didn't see out of Cam Newton was that he was just going to sit back in the pocket and eat a sandwich and send out a text and not have anyone on the Packer defense bother him and just chuck it downfield to Funchess and some of those guys. And yeah, I mean, again, Aaron Rodgers, you got to turn it on before the 4th. You know, he had that great play on the 4th in 16 or 17 to James Jones against Josh Norman, one of the premier cornerbacks in the NFC. You have to do those plays earlier in the game. You have to put those balls up. You have to give your guys a chance. You cannot dance around in the pocket for 6 seconds waiting for something to happen.
And as we mentioned before, Royce Boyles is our special guest this week, joining us in studio. We're also going to bring in Jenny Ritchie. And Jenny, why don't you let us know what you're going to talk about in Titletown Topics? Hello.
How's it going?
Going well.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Royce a lot about Lombardi. You know, he is the foremost expert on that subject. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about his favorite stories about Lombardi, what he thinks about Lombardi versus McCarthy. You know, we're going to really dive into those more personal stories that the everyday fan might not know about.
And speaking of what a fan might not know about, there is a person who is part of Packers team history who is getting some recognition, but maybe it should be a little bit more. So we're going to talk about that specifically coming up after this break. Much more to come here on Green and Gold Gridiron.
Brought to you in part by Hermanning Financial Group.
Hermanning Financial Group strives to help you and your family reach your financial goals while demonstrating their core values of integrity, independence, and innovation. With offices in Wausau, Stevens Point, Manitowoc, and Wisconsin Rapids, proudly supports Junior Achievement, North Central District.
Junior Achievement gives young people the skills they need to own their economic success. Our volunteers help students with financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship.
And it's really helping me understand how it's going to be in the future.
Do you like to walk?
Do you want to live longer?
You will love square dancing.
Friends you meet for life.
Marvelous people.
Like I said, meet people.
I love it.
Love it.
I love square dancing.
The fun, the family.
Great variety of music.
The camaraderie.
Young,
It's fun.
Try it, you'll like it. Call 715-544-7969. Visit WisconsinSquareDancing.com for more information. First lesson free, singles and couples welcome.
When disaster strikes, water, fire, storm damage, and even mold, we take care of them all. Anytime, day or night, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Quality service and customer satisfaction are top priorities. Tell your insurance company you prefer North Star Cleaning and Restoration.
And remember, don't just get it clean, get it North Star clean.
NorthStarCleaning.net. Welcome back to Green and Gold Gridiron. Brian Groff and Keith Rordink, and time for us to introduce our special guest, one of the foremost authorities when it comes to the Vince Lombardi Packers. We had him on our show last year, and we had such a great time. We wanted to invite him back. Royce Boyles, thanks so much for joining us again this year.
Royce,
Keith,
good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Great to be back.
You've written 3 books, collaborated with Dave Robinson, the Pro Football Hall of Famer. Those books focusing on the Vince Lombardi Packers and what a tremendous era in the organization. It's always fun to kind of look at the teams of current years, and they get compared still. It's 50 years since that first Super Bowl, but teams are always being compared back to those groups.
Well, and I think one thing that's consistent, and one of the reasons that I'm here, is because of talent. You know, I mean, you've got coaching, and Lombardi was one of a kind, obviously. But the talent that he inherited and the talent that a guy by the name of Jack Venisi supplied to him was certainly on a par with what Ron Wolf has done and what Ted Thompson is doing now. And I would say that what Jack did was probably superior.
And I got to be honest, when you brought up Jack Venisi to me, and I like to think I'm a student of the Packers and even the old school in the Lombardi era, and you mentioned his name, and I had heard that name, and I didn't know a lot about him. And you sent me the chapter from your book, and you sent me a comparison to the talent he had mined compared to Ron Wolf and all the Hall of Famers, and it's stunning. The names on that list: 6 NFL Hall of Famers, I think 28 guys that are in the Packer Hall of Fame, you know, star, and it just the names on there are, it's amazing. It's amazing what the guy's done, and that he's not more well known.
One of the best emails I ever got is after I sent you that, and you said something like, all I can say is wow, because I knew that if it was surprising you, it was really good stuff. When Lombardi got to Green Bay in 1958, there were 6 future Hall of Famers on the roster that Jack Venisi had drafted. Bart Starr, Jim Taylor, Paul Hornung, Forrest Gregg, Jim Ringo, Ray Nitschke. And then his first year, traded for Henry Jordan. The second year, signed his free agent kid by the name of Willie Wood, made the Hall of Fame, traded for Willie Davis. And Jack, this incredible talent, died at the age of 33. He had been in service and contracted rheumatic fever and died at age 33. But what Jack Venisi did was, I would say, the greatest collection of talent that was ever assembled by one person in the National Football League. Maybe Chuck Noll, possibly, with the Steelers in those times. But Jack's name ought to go up on the stadium where Ron Wolf's was, you know, that's what I believe, because Jack Venisi is just a one-of-a-kind, marvelous talent scout.
What's amazing is how innovative he was. Now, he was with the Packers for 10 years, 1950 through 1960. So you mentioned that they went through, and that was just the beginning of them becoming that championship team. But he was collecting talent. How did he know which players to go after and draft?
He had this huge network of people who were giving him information about these kids. And in the video that we have, he's got 18 3-ring binders of information on, you know, like 4,000 to 5,000 players. And the other thing about Jack Venisi and Vince Lombardi, 2 Italians, you'd think there would be this possibility that, you know, Mount St. Helens would have erupted, you know. But Venisi's temperament was even and upbeat, whereas Lombardi was unpredictable. But from everything, I remember Ron Kramer telling me, and I think we've quoted it in the book, saying Lombardi loved Venisi, and it was a great. Can you imagine? They won 5 world championships in 7 years, and in '63 barely missed. If Jack Venisi would have lived, and they'd have just put a couple difference makers on the ball club, it's not a stretch to think that maybe they could have run off 7 straight.
Yeah. And Jack was even instrumental in bringing Lombardi to the Packers, wasn't he?
I think without Jack Venisi, Lombardi does not come to Green Bay. I think another line in the book is, without Jack Venisi, there is no Lombardi Avenue in Green Bay. And I think that is absolutely accurate based on everything that we have heard.
And the other part of that is the connection with Paul Brown.
Yes.
So Paul Brown in that Eastern Division, and oh yeah, Vince Lombardi was also in that division. But when there's a trade, there's give and take. You have to feel like you're getting something, you're giving something up. He had a very good relationship, and that went beyond his early death. And it went on to other players who had then gone in and performed similar roles with the Green Bay Packers.
Dave Robinson has told me a story that when Paul Brown was in the old All-American Football Conference, that Lombardi would go to that training camp and spend like a month with Paul Brown, that relationship was very, very solid. The other thing, and this was verified by Boyd Dowler, Paul Brown was the first one to do intelligence tests, things of that nature. And I think that both Lombardi's players and Paul Brown's were intelligent. One of the greatest things that I was ever told in researching all these books was by Boyd Dowler. And he said, with Lombardi players, you could miss a tackle and you could drop a ball. Not many, but you don't make mental mistakes. And so I think when they traded with each other, they knew they were getting quality ball players that would fit. And then also, once Lombardi got in Green Bay, those ball players would get out of the division. In other words, if Lombardi had a guy that could play, but he didn't want him in the division, he'd send him to Paul Brown and vice versa. That was part of the deal.
Now, Royce, you've really taken the lead on trying to get Venisi more credit. I know there's a monument that went up, and of course you've got the chapter in the book, but you know, how do you see that all coming together? I mean, is there a shot? I know you've had discussions about the Ring of Honor.
Well, first of all, we've placed Jack's name in nomination for the Wisconsin Athletic Hall of Fame. We feel, you know, pretty good about that. Maybe in 2017, because Donald Driver and Bo Ryan are going in this year. We would like, the criteria to have your name in that ring in Lambeau Field is you have to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But there was a precedent set in 2003 when Ron Wolf's name was put up singularly by itself in the northeast corner of the stadium. And what I understand is that the rationale, or what has come back from the Packers, that Jack's name doesn't go up there because he wasn't general manager. Well, we got a piece of paper here that says Ron Wolf, basically, and Ron Wolf deserves every honor that he gets. But in Green Bay, as far as Hall of Famers, Ron Wolf traded for Brett Favre and signed Reggie White as a free agent. And we went through the Starr, Horning, Taylor, Gregg, Ringo, Davis, that whole thing. It isn't close, you know. And I would like to see Jack Venisi's name put up in the stadium. If it's semantics that's keeping this maybe greatest talent scout in the history of the game from having due honor in the stadium, then shame on the Green Bay Packers and taking pride in their great tradition. Because Jack Venisi is as much a part of that tradition as anyone. He's just been under-noticed.
Yeah, it's an amazing legacy. Well, we have to take a break. We have much more to talk about with Royce Boyles coming up after this on Green and Gold Gridiron.
When disaster strikes, water, fire, storm damage, and even mold, we take care of them all. Anytime, day or night, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Quality service and customer satisfaction are top priorities. Tell your insurance company you prefer North Star Cleaning and Restoration.
And remember, don't just get it clean, get it North Star Clean.
NorthstarCleaning.net.
Hermiting Financial Group strives to help you and your family reach your financial goals while demonstrating their core values of integrity, independence, and innovation. With offices in Wausau, Stevens Point, Manitowoc, and Wisconsin Rapids, proudly supports Junior Achievement North Central District.
Junior Achievement gives young people the skills they need to own their economic success. Our volunteers help students with financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship.
And it's really helping me understand how it's going to be in the future.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we're having a fantastic time with our guest, author Royce Boyles. Jenny Ritchie back in, and she has her Titletown Topics.
Yes, I have the Titletown Topics. So, you know, people are always trying to compare players of different eras, especially the Lombardi era, to today. But you don't hear a lot about necessarily comparing coaches. So how do you feel McCarthy would have done if he were transported back to Lombardi era's team? how do you feel like he would have done? Or vice versa, how would Lombardi do if he was in charge of the team we see on the field today?
That's the question we get asked a lot, Jenny, and that is, could Lombardi coach today? And I think that within that, you have to understand that if he were able to coach today, that means that he would have had the opportunity to learn and change with the times up till now. You transport him into now, well, that would be drastic. His players have said that he could coach any time, and I believe that.
You know, you have a lot of knowledge, obviously, of Vince Lombardi. You know, people know a lot about him on the field, his coaching style, how he was, but you also have a lot of personal stories about him, you know, his family life and his wife and, you know, all of that type of stuff. So do you have a favorite story about Vince Lombardi that might not, you know, be out in the public too much, that the everyday fan might not know? Do you have a favorite story from all of your research?
Absolutely. First thing is, this is a generic comment. We interviewed a lot of people about Vince Lombardi, and there was nobody who off the record said, yeah, but did you know this? There was no scandal around the guy. He was better, you know. His superstitions. He dressed, if you take a look at Lombardi off of the field, he was a clothes horse. He was always dressed really well. Very superstitious man. One day, game day, he forgot to take a belt. And so he found clothesline, binder twine, or something, and put in his pants to use as a belt. And during the game, Olive Jordan, Henry's wife, told me this. During the game, he's hitching up his pants during the game. Whole game, look. They won the game. Guess what he wore for a belt the next week?
The second one.
Exactly.
I don't want to show you what Brian's wearing now for a belt.
Yeah.
He's also superstitious.
Okay.
I don't win too many games.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just a really fun way to get into that. There, you know, there's so many things that people know. They can do statistics on Vince Lombardi, but it's those personal details that are so much fun to hear because so many people don't know him off the field. They don't know his wife. Or I believe there was a story in the chapter I was reading about how his wife's dog was sick and he called him off the field during a practice. And I was laughing as I was reading it because I'm like, I would do that.
I recall him cursing a lot in the chapter.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and the vet that they called was Dr. Sam Van Easy, Jack's brother.
Something like that. Yeah. All right, so our next topic is more of a broad NFL topic, not necessarily Lombardi related, but so concussions, player safety, big hot button topic right now, especially in the NFL. So you work with a lot of players from, 40 years. They haven't suited up in 40 years. They haven't been on the field. So what do you think the NFL has to do to kind of take care of more of that generation of players?
I think they would probably need to get a conscience. I think that would be very helpful. I think that Roger Goodell, when it comes to his sincerity and how genuine he is beyond a joke. I think Roger Goodell is an awful commissioner when it comes to actually paying homage to the players. A lot of lip service. The National Football League, I think, is a spin machine, is a PR machine. But to have these guys with the degree of dementia and Alzheimer's that they have, I think it's awful. There's a book out called League of Denial. Mm-hmm. If you haven't read it, read it. There's a movie that's coming out called Concussion. The National Football League acted the same way that the big tobacco companies did when information was coming out on concussions. They slandered the researchers just like the tobacco companies did. You know, if I would do something to one of your children or your spouse or something like that, I would apologize to you and I would be sincere about it. The National Football League has taken on, one of their tactics is just absolute silence. Just don't acknowledge that it happens. When the decent thing to do, and many of the people watching tonight teach their children to be responsible and take account, take account of your own actions. I think the National Football League is in dire, dire need of leadership. And you watch the NBA as they transition from David Stern to Adam Silver. Seamless baseball, Bud Selig to Rob Manfred. I don't think this guy in the NFL has got it right. And I mean, he just can't seem to not screw something up when he puts his hands on it. I think Roger Goodell is awful. By the way, there are, I think if you take a look, the number of minutes and seconds in a year, I think there's either 31 or 33 million seconds in a year. Roger Goodell's getting paid $44 million a year. Every second of every day, he's getting more than $1. I live down by Portage. I checked the papers today. There are not I didn't see a job like that listed today, No. When you get that kind of money, you're supposed to do a job from day one, and he hasn't.
I think when you look back at the players from that generation too, I mean, a lot of these guys, they weren't making today's money, and that's what people have to remember. These are guys that had real jobs in the offseason. I mean, these are guys that now, as they get later in life and they develop these problems, they don't have the financial resources to even take care of themselves the way you would want to take care of yourself.
Dave Robinson, who I know quite well, and you've had him as a guest on this show. Dave Robinson's retirement from the National Football League is $18,000 a year. Okay, Hall of Fame career, played from 1963 through 1974. If you take a Major League Baseball player who played 5 years within that time period, they get $185,000 a year and medical. The National Football League could do the same thing if they had the will, if they had the heart, and if they had the conscience.
And I think there is a thought and a sentiment out there that at best they're dragging their feet as more of these players pass away.
Delay, deny, and hope they die is the slogan that Bernie Parrish came up with. Delay, deny, and hope they die.
Yeah, very fitting.
It's sad.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our Titletown Topics. Royce, it's always a pleasure to have you join us.
Brian, Keith, Jenny, thank you very much. And
always a pleasure.
Thanks, Packer fans. There are better days ahead. We just don't know when.
Thank you so much for your insight. We'll be right back after this with Keith's Keys and our Titletown Pick'ems.
When disaster strikes, water, fire, storm damage, and even mold, we take care of them all. Anytime, day or night, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Quality service and customer satisfaction are top priorities. Tell your insurance company you prefer North Star Cleaning and Restoration.
And remember, don't just get it clean, get it North Star clean.
NorthStarCleaning.net.
Hermiting Financial Group strives to help you and your family reach your financial goals while demonstrating their core values of integrity, independence, and innovation. With offices in Wausau, Stevens Point, Manitowoc, and Wisconsin Rapids, proudly supports Junior Achievement, North Central District.
Junior Achievement gives young people the skills they need to own their economic success. Our volunteers help students with financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship.
And it's really helping me understand how it's going to be in the future.
Do you like to walk?
You want to live longer?
You will love square dancing.
Friends you meet for life.
Marvelous people.
I guess I meet people.
I love it.
Love it.
I love square dancing.
The fun, the family.
Great variety of music.
The camaraderie.
You're young.
It's fun.
Try it, you like it. Call 715-544-7969. Visit WisconsinSquareDancing.com for more information. First lesson free.
We're back with our final segment of Green and Gold Gridiron, the Packers and the Lions in the state of Wisconsin, where Green Bay is very good in this series. Haven't lost in the rivalry since December of 1991. So as we look at this game, what kind of keys do you have for us?
Well, this is going to be a get-right game. This is probably going to seem like a cure to everything that's been going bad, but I think people are going to want to take it with a grain of salt that it is a very struggling Detroit Lions team. The keys, protect Aaron Rodgers. He got hit 14 times last week, 5 sacks. There was no pocket. There was too much dancing around. They have to protect him. The good news is the Lions' front seven, along with the rest of the team, is really struggling. The one guy you got to worry about, defensive end Ziggy Ansah, I think he's 4th in the NFL and leads the NFC with 7 sacks. So it's going to be a challenge for Bulaga or Bakhtiari, wherever they move him to.
We'll see if the Packers can follow through on those. Let's bring in Jenny Ritchie for our NFL Pick'ems, and a tough weekend for Keith. He went 0-5.
I'm so
Jenny,
excited right now.
2-3, and I was just above 500.
There's no
so
excuse
you
for
see
that.
the updated standings there.
You can do that
I've
next
opened
week
up a 5-game lead
It's
on
not going to
Keith.
happen again.
All right,
I think that you should. That would be so nice.
Our first one, Keith, we'll let you go first. We have Vikings
wow. I get to go first.
The
The
Raiders.
score goes first.
Wow, Vikings at
It's
Raiders.
even your locks, 0-2.
I'm gonna pick the Raiders. I like.
Okay.
Oh, you're already scoffing at it. I like
right,
what Derek
that's
Carr is
fine.
doing in that offense. I like Amari Cooper. Yeah, I'm not worried about the Vikings. Not this week. Raiders.
I'm going with the Vikings. So I'm
Good.
sincerely hoping you lose because I would love to
Here,
catch
I'll
up to
pick
you
up
in the
again. I hope
standings.
The
you
Raiders
the
have given
Vikings.
me every reason to pick them because of their offensive players, but I'm going to go Minnesota.
Good. There we go. I just
This
picked
is
up.
where I
so
pick
you
up a
picked
game.
one up on us. Bears and Rams.
Wow. The Rams didn't do me any favors last week.
No.
I don't know what I saw with the Bears against San Diego. I'll pick them again. I don't know why. Zach Miller will do another one-handed grab.
Yeah, that was a nice catch.
I'm going to go with the Bears, too. They've got that little winning bug now. They're getting excited. You can just tell that Jay Cutler looks so pleased with himself.
It might be a 3-day bug. It might not last to the next
Jay Cutler
game.
just looks so happy.
He did.
Don't want to take that away.
He didn't look mopey at all.
I'm taking the Rams. So there's your chance to pick up another game on me.
Thanks,
Lions
Brian.
and Packers. Does the streak continue in Wisconsin?
You got to go Packers.
Okay, the Packers continue to win in Wisconsin. Your locks, 2 of them, Keith.
My locks, Bengals at home against the Texans. Nothing to not like. Still undefeated. Dalton to Eifert. Got to go Bengals.
And that
my
was
other one?
your first one.
We get 2. I forgot.
Can I take another undefeated team and go Patriots at Giants?
Sure, do that.
I need to help myself out.
You need that.
I'm taking the Panthers over the Titans. Just Panthers are, as sad as I am that they beat us, I'm like, they were looking pretty good.
They did look good.
They did look good. And I'm going to take the Redskins over the Saints. You know, it's home team. They have the same number of losses. Neither of them wants another one, but I think they're going to pull it out.
The interesting thing about this weekend, Patriots and Giants, is the only game with both teams above 500.
Yikes.
I'm going to go Broncos at home and the Bengals at home. Those are our locks. Did everyone get in? Are you feel good about your picks?
You picked 2 undefeated teams, too.
Well, the Broncos aren't undefeated, but I did take them.
Want
to let you know that
I go 0-5.
Want to let you know that Royce Boyles and Dave Robinson will be selling books, Lombardi Impact and Lombardi Legacy, signing autographs as well, and they'll be at the Jack Venisi Monument, and that's December 13th when the Packers host the Dallas Cowboys. Packers need to bounce back and beat the Detroit Lions.
Yes.
And we can talk about that in next week's show. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Green and Gold Gridiron.